أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ودخل معه السجن فتيان قال أحدهما إني أراني أعصر خمرا وقال الآخر إني أراني أحمل فوق رأسي خبزا تأكل الطير منه نبئنا بتأويله إنا نراك من المحسنين. Alhamdulillah, in today's Taraweeh, Surah Yusuf in its entirety was read. The Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, places so many things in front of us in the Quran in different ways, forms, and fashions that we can benefit. The Quran is not a book of history, it's not a storybook. That's why, for example, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam's story comes in different parts of the Quran. Sometimes you'll say one section speaks maybe about his birth, another section is speaking about when he receives prophethood, another section is about the initial discussion with Fir'aun. And it's all over the Quran. It's not in one story that it comes, Musa was born here, this happened, this happened, this happened. It's not in a chronological order. The only story in the Quran that's in a chronological order is Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam's story. And one of the Mufassirun mentions a point. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also teaching us that if you want to relate a story, how do you relate a story? You don't need to go on and say all the things that are unnecessary. And Yusuf is the Surah Yusuf, the lovely surah was read, mashallah, today. So it starts with the dream that Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam had until he rises on to the highest, the position in Egypt, and then is the realization of that dream. Basically, that's what it is. There are many lessons, and ulama and scholars have written books and given commentaries on the story of Yusuf, and many points would have been derived from the life and the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. I'm just going to focus briefly on verses number 36 to 41 and give a quick, inshallah, one or two advices. This is when Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he has now been imprisoned. He's now in prison. And of course, he goes to prison. Why? Not because of anything wrong that he has done, right? He didn't do anything wrong. He finds himself falsely accused and thrown into prison. The Aziz of Misr and his wife, they decided to send Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam for some to prison, as it had become extremely difficult. It's because they in order to put an end to the disgrace that Aziz of Misr's wife had brought to their household. And Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, remember when he was invited and he was being seduced and tempted to do evil, at that time he made a dua. That, oh my Allah, the prison is dearer and more beloved to me than the adultery towards which these women call me. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers the dua. Aziz Misr sends him into jail. He's in jail. وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتِيَانِ. Whilst he is there, two youth entered the prison. It's been mentioned that one was the baker of the king, and one was the one who would serve drinks to the king. So basically a butler, right? The kings have butlers. They use a butler, and the other was the cook. What had happened, according to some of the commentators, there was some political turmoil in the land, and some people came and gave some bribe and tried to bribe these two people. You're the cook, you're the one who pours the wine. We'll give you some money, we'll give you whatever you want to give you, and poison the king. So both of them initially agreed. What happened after was the one who would serve the drinks, he got a change of heart, and he said, no, I'm not going to do this. The cook, however, went ahead with his plan. That evening, when they went to serve the food, before the king could eat, the butler shouted out, the one who was pouring the wine, shouted out, don't eat that food, it is poison. So the cook now shouted out, because he didn't know the other person had refused to go ahead. So he said, don't drink from the wine. So the king is smart. The king said to him, okay, you drink the wine. So he took it and he drank it. He told the cook, you eat. He said, no. He took the food and gave it to a dog. The dog ate it and died instantly. So the king now, in order to get things straight and find out what's happening, sends both of them to prison. Both of them are in prison, and they come across Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. right? So these two youngsters are in prison, and they're seeing, they're witness to the akhlaq, the morals, the character of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. So one day they come to him and they say, "Ahad qala ahaduma inni arani a'siru khamra." So one of them came and said, I saw myself in a dream squeezing wine. And the other said, I see myself carrying bread on my head from which birds are eaten. So inform us of the interpretation. We truly see you to be of the righteous. Now subhanAllah, how did they know he's righteous? So the scholars mention that Yusuf alayhi salatu was salam, even though he's in prison, he's a Nabi, right? And he continues to show the akhlaq of a prophet and the akhlaq of a believer. He doesn't allow being in prison to stop him from how he is supposed to behave. And that's a lesson for all of us. Yes, halat comes, conditions come upon us. Sometimes we want something, it doesn't happen how we want. But that doesn't mean that we give up being or we stop being how a Muslim is supposed to be. Things happen, right? Things happen in life. But at all times, the Islamic akhlaq, the Islamic values, we have to continue to carry on with. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he was in prison. And it was his character that drew these two young men close to him to interpret their dreams. And it says that Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, when they said that we see you to be from the right, the doers of goodness, they were witness to the fact that Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, anyone in prison who took ill, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam would be there. Anyone who wanted someone to speak to them, he was there. Any assistance needed, he was there. And then at night, he would be standing in front of Allah. He would be praying. He would be seeking Allah. They saw the signs of righteousness. And that's for us as well. That's the dawah, that's the invitation. People don't read as much as they do, as they used to. We need to be the walking, talking Islam. So these two, they come to him now and they say, give us the interpretation. So Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, now he takes hold of the situation and he says to them, قَالَ لَا يَأْتِيكُمَا طَعَامٌ تُرْزَقَانِهِ إِلَّا نَبَّأْتُكُمَا بِتَأْوِيلِهِ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَأْتِيَكُمَا ذَلِكُمَا مِمَّا عَلَمَنِي رَبِّي إِنِّي تَرَكْتُ مِلَّةَ قَوْمٍ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَهُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ كَافِرُونَ. So seizing the opportunity to teach them about Tawheed, because these individuals were worshipping more than one gods. They are polytheists. They were worshipping lots of idols and lots of other things. So Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam did what we should always be doing. That every time you get the opportunity to invite people to Islam, to speak about Islam, seize the opportunity. So he sees these two people come in, these two young men come in. So he says to them, no problem. I shall inform you of the interpretation before the food provided for you arrives. So before the next meal, I will tell you, don't worry, I'm going to tell you. And then he's explaining that, yes, I know the art of interpreting dreams, but this is from the knowledge that my Lord has taught me. I have discarded the religion of those people who do not believe in Allah and who reject the Akhirah. So immediately he's telling them what his beliefs are. I'm not like you. I don't believe in what you believe. And then he says to them now, so now he starts the conversation. So after explaining that I'm not on your beliefs, I'm not on your religion, he says, Ya sahiba yasijni arbabun mutafarriquna khayrun amillahu al-wahid al-qahar. That all my two prison companions. Another important point. When you're addressing someone, you don't look, he didn't say, oh sinner, right? Or kafir. He addresses them with an address that was common to them, to all of them. They were in prison. All of them are in prison. So he says to them that, oh, my two prison companions, right? Oh, my two prison companions. Are numerous gods better, or Allah, who is the one and Almighty? ما تعبدون من دونه إلا أسماء سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان. Besides him, you worship only names that you and your forefathers have named without any revealed authority from Allah. In al-hukmu illa lillah. Decisions rest only with Allah. Amara Allah ta'budu illa iyyah. Allah has commanded that only He be worshipped. ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. This is the right deen, but most people do not know it. So he gives them a lesson in Tawheed. Again, another important point is that when we're speaking to people of Islam, the first thing is about our beliefs in Tawheed. You know, everything else comes after. The Salah, the Zakat, and how to get married, all that comes after. We have to start with the basics. Sometimes we start, and oh, and you have to do this, and you have the basics. What is Tawheed? And one of the scholars mentioned, if we look at this, Yusuf alayhi didn't mince his words either. And we are not supposed to mince our words either when talking about Islam. Don't be frightened. He comes and he says, this is it. What you're worshipping is just names that you and your forefathers have made up. What we're supposed to be doing, we're supposed to be worshipping Allah and Allah alone. That's it. So he was straight to the point. Straight to the point. Before that, he mentioned, وَاتَّبَعْتُ مِلَّةَ آبَائِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ. I have adopted the religion of my forefathers, Ibrahim, Ishaq, and Yaqub. مَا كَانَ لَنَا أَن نُشْرِكَ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. It is not correct for us to ascribe any partners to Allah. ذَلِكَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ عَلَيْنَا وَعَلَى النَّاسِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَشْكُرُونَ. This understanding of Tawheed is from the favors upon us and upon all people. But most people are ungrateful. So what I'm worshipping is not nothing new. This has been the way of all the Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam. And he referenced, Yaqub is his father, Ishaq is his grandfather, and Ibrahim is his great grandfather. I'm on their path. And then now he comes to the point of interpreting the dream. Remember, one of them saw that the birds were eaten from his head, and the next saw that he was squeezing the grapes and for the king. He says, "Ya صاحبي السجن أما أحدكما فيسقي ربه خمرا وأما الآخر فيسلب فتأكل الطير من رأسه قضي الأمر الذي فيه تستفتيان." Oh, my two prison companions. Now he has to give bad news to one, and he's going to give good news to the other. But he didn't turn to them and say, "Oh, you, good news for you, bad news for you." He said it in an ambiguous way because he didn't want that person now to have even more. Because sometimes what happens when you're worrying, you worry, and that worrying is even greater than the punishment sometimes, right? So he didn't make him worry. So he just said in an ambiguous way that one of you will serve wine to his master. In other words, he's going to be proven innocent of the alleged crime. As for the other, he will be crucified and birds will eat from his head after his death. The decision has been passed regarding the matter you have inquired from me. And then he told the one, then he looked at it, then he would have called him probably one side. He told the one whom he anticipated would be freed, mention me to your master. In other words, tell the king that I've been imprisoned for something I didn't do. فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ذِكْرَ رَبِّهِ فَلَبِثَ فِي السِّجْنِ بِضْعَ سِنِينَ. However, Shaitan caused him to forget mentioning Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam to his master, and Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam ended up remaining in prison for a few years. Another point here is using the means. Using the means. He didn't just say, Yusuf alayhi salam just say, I'm going to stay now in prison now for the rest of my life. No. That was like a ticket out, a way out. So okay, go and speak to the king. The person, but it was Allah. Remember, we have to try. Results are in the hands of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at that time did not will for it to happen. So Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam ended up staying in prison for a few years until the king saw a dream, and then the king wanted an interpretation, and then that man remembered, oh, Yusuf, dream interpreter. And then he got him, and then he was released after. But one of the main lessons and main points from this passage that we can take is the important principle of communicating and correction, what is called tabligh and irshad, right? Calling people to Allah and rectifying and trying to help in rectifying the issues that we find in society. It is the duty of the da'i and the reformer that he should all times and under all circumstances keep his constant mission of da'wah and tabligh first. We are all da'is. All of us have a role to play. And Mufti Muhammad Shafi Sahib, Nawwarallahu Marqadu, he says, please do not take da'wah and tabligh as something which takes place in a conference or on a minbar or a stage alone. This job is done far more effectively through personal contacts and private exchanges. That is what all of us have that responsibility on our shoulders. That in any way we can, any opportunity presents itself to speak about Islam, we speak about it. I'll just end with this last incident. So a few days ago, mashallah, just to show that when we're brave and we want to do things, Allah Ta'ala opens the way. So there's at one of our older secondary schools, one of the youngsters, mashallah, had this desire and urge that it's Ramadan, we want to be able to pray Dhuhr together. We get home, by the time we get home, yeah, we get to pray, but we're not getting to pray in Jama'at. Because of course, Salah in Masajid will be finished. And he had this desire. He goes to one of the oldest secondary schools. He went, he wrote a letter, received the answer that yes, we'll facilitate it. That's it. Alhamdulillah, we have a role to play. But we got to answer, we got to be brave enough. And that's when it comes to speaking about Islam. Anytime you get the opportunity, now don't bore people or don't push things people down the throat. But when there's a chance that we get an opening, so you're sitting down next to someone on the plane, oh, so you're a Muslim. What do you do, man? Is that Ramadan, you know? And then we talk. Okay, this is Ramadan. And then for that as well, we need some knowledge. So inshallah, we'll acquire knowledge, and then inshallah, we'll implement. And through our words and deeds, will be a walking, talking invitation to Islam. May Allah Ta'ala make that reality. Ameen. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.